mighty Yehudim. Lions of Yah, praise Yah with me. The righteous, Yah, the holy, Yah, the creator, Yah, the only, Yah, the righteous, Yah, the holy, Yah, the creator, Yah, the only, Yah. He is our King, our Savior, and our Judge, Yehudim. Yahweh is righteous. He is our King, our Savior, and our Judge, Yehudim. Yahweh is righteous. It's gonna be a new day. It's gonna be a new way. You must think that you're our King, Yehudim, for striving. It's gonna be a new day. It's the beginning of a new way. You could never be our King, Yehudim. Rep Yah with me. It's been going on 400 years, 400 years since you stole our names. 400 years since Willie Lynch paid the slaves. 400 years and we still remain. 400 years of living with Cain. 400 years and we still a slave. Slaving on the job, slaving on the block, slaving in the jail and in our hearts. We are the mighty Yehudim. Lions of Yah, praise Yah with me. The righteous, Yah, the holy, Yah, the creator, Yah, the only, Yah, the righteous, Yah, the holy, Yah, the creator, Yah, the only. He is our King, our Savior, and our Judge, Yehudim. Yahweh is righteous. It's gonna be a new day. It's gonna be a new way. You must think that you're our King, Yehudim, for striving and it's gonna be a new day. It's the beginning of a new way. You could never be our King, Yehudim. Rep Yah with me. Oh, you could never be my King. Oh, Yehudim, for driving and oh, it's
Yeah. We gon' fly. Yeah. We gon' fly. Yeah.
Yeah. Arise, shine, for the light has come. The glory of Yah has risen up on his sons and his daughters. The darkness is uncoverable. Sheets of our lovers were perverted till we burn. So now it's time to return back to Yah, our city of refuge. The fountains of living waters. This showers me with righteousness, restores my order, and turns this pawn to a king. A song for my soul to sing that brought me down very low. My garments white like the wings. Yah, praise this be the Most High that brought me out of insanity, crushed the towers of vanity, and made a man of me. I'm now asking for a key, no longer my refugee. I'm now Yah's planet. See,
we gon' march to the city of God. We gon' dance, we gon' sing, we gon' run to the city, we gon' fly to the city of God. We gon' march to the city of God. We gon' dance, we gon' sing, we gon' run to the city, run to the city.
1,000 meters this what measure waters came to your ankles. The method did repeat. Waters came right to your knee. Before you further Joe goings, waters came to your loins. 1,000 measures and the last a river you could not pass. Everything that touched the waters was healed. Plenty of your fish left to swim. There was meat from the trees, nourished the bodies from leaves. The vision I seen was more than a dream. Waters flow on sides of sanctuary. My heart had joy and merit. I'm renovating my soul until we make it home. Foolish sins forever gone. Got spirit resting on my bones. Brothers and sisters, you with me? Let's purge ourselves really quickly. Make our souls polished and spiffy. So we gone.
We gon' march to the city. We gon' dance, we gon' sleep, we gon' run to the city, we gon' fly to the city. We gon' march to the city. We gon' dance, we gon' sleep, we gon' run to the city,
Listen, praises to the Most High for getting me out, for blessing me with understanding of what you talking about. My sins are too many. I thought another God could save. To you will woke me from a slumber, pull me right from my grave. And now that I'm saved, I'm blessed to know or understand truth. That no blessing, no curses coming, least is coming through you. I sing praises to my God, to my very last breath, and use your laws as a ladder if I ever misstep. Let's praise the Most High, Yah, pay His holy name. Regard, we have come a long way, yet we got so far before we right before our King. All of this ain't seen till we the sons of righteousness with healings up in our wings. We gon'
fly to the city of God. We gon' march to the city of God. We gon' dance, we gon' sing, we gon' run to the city, we gon' fly to the city of God. We gon' march to the city of God. We gon' dance, we gon' sing, we gon' run to the city of God.
I wanna go, I wanna go, I wanna go, I wanna go, I wanna go home, I wanna go home. Wicked, I won't get down, wicked, I won't get down now. I wanna go, I wanna go, I wanna go, I wanna go. I wanna go home, I wanna go home. Wicked, I won't get down, wicked, I won't get down now. I wanna go, I wanna go, I wanna go, I wanna go, I wanna go home, I wanna go home. Wicked, I won't get down, wicked, I won't get down now. I wanna go, I wanna go, I wanna go, I wanna go, yeah, I wanna go home, I wanna go home, I wanna go home. So
Hallelujah. Praise the mighty Yah. Yah is righteous, Yah is holy, and let Yahweh be magnified. And welcome to another beautiful broadcast of Nothing But the Truth. I am Mowreh IshYAH, YIsraEL, of the house of Israel, here to bring you nothing but the truth. As I said, I'm Mowreh IshYAH, YIsraEL, of the house of Israel of Cincinnati, located at 1907 Vine Street. And we'd like to say shalom to everybody that is tuned in to our program, for we know that the only reason you have tuned in is for your great love and fear towards the mighty Yah. And as I said, we will bring you nothing but the truth of the mighty Yah. And who is this Yahweh? Well, Yahweh is the Elohim of our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Yahweh is the creator of the heavens, earth, and sea, and all that therein is. Yahweh is the only judge, the only lawgiver, the only king, and the only redeemer, and the only savior of Israel and the world. And we praise the mighty Yah with all our heart and all our soul. We praise Yahweh and give him all the glory, all the honor, and all the praises to the Most High Yah. Hallelujah. And we will be bringing you the word of Yah today, Yahweh's truth. For it is Yahweh that has appointed us and ordained us to teach you his truth. And we'll be discussing a second installment to what we started teaching on yesterday, which was our story. As I said yesterday, our story, the Hebrew story about the children of Israel, is what we should be focused on. We've been indoctrinated, we've been taught, we've been drilled and trained to know their story, or as you may know, history, which is, of course, void of our story. In history, especially the history that is taught by our oppressors, taught by the enemies of the mighty Yah, taught by who Yahweh placed over us for captivity, their story or their history teaches that our story is a myth. Our story is fables and fairy tales. Our story is not real, but their story, history, is real. And they teach all kind of things, but our story is void of fact according to history. So our story is not what you read in the history books. Our story is not what you look at on the National Geographic. Our story is not what you see in the archaeological and anthropological journals. Our story is not what is published in the newspapers. It is not our story that the universities build their history departments on. It is not our story. That world thought of historical events in time is based in or generated from. Yet it is history, his story, and not ours. But our story is the truth. As we read in Isaiah 53 yesterday, if we go there. In Isaiah the 53rd chapter, it was the first verse. And it reads, "Who hath believed our report? And to whom is the arm of Yahweh revealed?" Who's going to believe this report? Who is going to understand? Who's going to see? Who is going to believe what Yahweh has revealed to the children of Israel? Who's believed our report? We don't even believe the mighty Yah. Look what it says in the book of Ezekiel, the 3rd chapter. And yes, we're dealing with our story. And as we discussed yesterday, as I taught yesterday, we've been lied to about our identity. We've been lied to about who we are, where we come from. We've been lied to about the time, but we're going to break all that up today. We're going to break all that up dealing with this series of teaching. I already know that this is going to include another teaching, but yet we're going to break a lot of this up today. But in Ezekiel, the 3rd chapter, in verse 5 it says, or verse 4 it says, And he said unto me, Son of man, go, get thee unto the house of Israel, and speak with my words unto them. For thou art not sent to a people of a strange speech, and of a hard language, but to the house of YIsraEL, not to many people of a strange speech, and of a hard language, whose words thou canst not understand. Surely had I sent thee unto them, they would have hearkened unto thee. But the house of Israel will not hearken unto thee. For the house of Israel will not hearken unto me. For all the house of Israel are impudent and hard-hearted. And we don't believe our own report. We don't listen to Yahweh. We don't follow his directions. So we don't believe our own story. We'll let somebody else tell us his story and what his story says and what his story is about, and we'll follow after his story. But we don't want to go after our story. And if you go to Jeremiah, as it was read a few days ago, in Jeremiah, the 16th chapter, I believe. I usually get this chapter and verse mixed up, so let me make sure. The 6th chapter of Jeremiah, the 16th verse, where it reads, Thus saith Yahweh, stand ye in the ways and see. Ask for the old paths. Where is the good way? And walk therein, and ye shall find rest for your souls. But they said, we will not walk therein. Yahweh told us to go and ask for the ancient paths. But we don't want to know the ancient paths from our own people. Also, in the book of Deuteronomy, the 32nd chapter, we have to know our story. Deuteronomy 32, verse 7 reads, Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask your enemies, and they will show you, and your oppressors, and they will tell thee. Is that what that says? No, it does not say ask of your enemies and of your oppressors. It states to ask your fathers, and they will shew thee, and thy elders, your elders, and they will tell you. Our story. When the Most High divided the nations, their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set them in the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Yisrael. For Yahweh's portion is his people. Yaakov is the rod of his inheritance, or the lot of his inheritance. Our story is ingrained in the beginning of time. Our story is ingrained in the boundaries of the people. Even when he had the sons of Adam, he put their boundary, their bounds, they have a border, and it can't go beyond this magical number 12. Because Yahweh did something special with the children of Israel. And it's our story. Yet we want to go to the Kebra Nagast, which is the Ethiopian book of Kings, which ain't got nothing to do with the Hebrew Israelites. Even though the Kebra Nagast starts off acknowledging that Abraham is in their descendancy, is in their ancestry, I should say. And they give you some funny story of Abraham that they borrowed from the book of Enoch, because the Ethiopian history traces its roots to Christianity. And did you not know that in 100 AD, some Christians compiled and wrote this book that they named Enoch? Some little book that they wrote and they want to attribute it to Enoch, and some Christians wrote it in 100 AD. That's not our story. Yahweh didn't send no Christians to write about his servant Enoch. Yahweh always told his prophets to write it down. And since you don't see Yahweh telling Enoch to write whatever down, how can that actually be a book of Yah when it don't even agree with the book of Yah? And yes, that's where the Kebra Nagast, a historical book of kings for the Ethiopians, Christianized book that they put together to give their line of kings some divinity. Yes, and they have some funny little story about Abraham in there. But yet they had to talk about Abraham. But you're not Ethiopian. You're not a Cushite. And no, our story is not the story of the ancient Cushites that started the kingdom of Babylon. For instance, go to the book of Genesis, the 10th chapter. In Genesis, the 10th chapter, if you start reading in the 6th verse, it says, "And the sons of Ham." Now, the funny thing about this is, that's the Hebrew mistranslation. That's the English mistranslation of this son. In Hebrew, his name is pronounced Chem, which sounds just like Kim, which is where you get Kemet from, city or land of Ham, land of Chem. Oh, yes. All these people running around talking about Kemet. It's a Hebrew name. It's found its origins in the Hebrew scriptures that they say don't exist, that they say is plagiarized. Ham. That's where you get Kemet from. Ham. Yes. So the son of Ham was Cush, his firstborn. Mizraim, the people that populated Egypt, his secondborn. And Phut, which was in what you know today is Libya, and Canaan, of course, the father of the ancient land of Canaan, our land today. And the sons of Cush, Seba, Havilah, Sabta, Ra'amah, and Sabteka, and the sons of Ra'amah, Sheba, and Dedan. And Cush begot Nimrod. And he began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before Yah. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before Yahweh. In the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh, in the land of Shinar, which is in what you would call Iraq, what you would call Saudi Arabia. This is where his land was. This is where Nimrod began his kingdom, and it spread throughout that area. And this was one of the first major ancient kingdoms in the earth. But it is not the Hebrew kingdom. It's not where the Hebrews come from. Yet and still, they have to use Yah's book to validate their history. To even talk about this place that they call Mesopotamia today. That they call Samaria, Sumer today. Even though Yahweh told you its exact name. The reason they don't tell you the names, the ancient names, because they would match up with the scriptures. And the reason that we done forgot about our story is because of Deuteronomy, the 32nd chapter, if we go there. But Yahweh, he don't want you to be in the dark anymore. He wants you to be educated in the truth. And that's what I've come to do. Educate you in the truth. You don't need to unlearn nothing. You need to learn the truth. Because if you unlearn, then how you going to learn? You need to learn the truth. And in Deuteronomy 32, verse 21, it says, or verse 26, it says, I said, I would scatter them into corners. I would make the remembrance of them to cease from among men. Why did Yahweh do this to the children of Israel? Because we rejected him. We turned away from him. We went after other deities, other people, other gods. And Yahweh said, that's how you want to do it? That's the game you want to play? That's how you want to behave? Well, then you can go. You can leave out of my land that I've given you, and you can take your memories out of your head. You're not even going to be remembered. And Yahweh let the kingdoms of the earth write their own story. And now that's what's being taught. That's the history you see on National Geographic. That's the history you see on the History Channel. They got a whole channel to talk about their story. And now it's populated with shows where they just going around stealing stuff from other people's stuff, garbage, and claiming it to be theirs and selling it. That's what they've been doing. And now you have his story ruling in the minds of the people. But Yahweh wants his servants to return, and it's time for you to learn the truth. So even ancient Sumer, ancient Mesopotamia, started by a black man, Cush, Nimrod. But they got to use Yah's book to validate it. But it is important that you know about this land of Shinar. Because if you go to the book of Genesis, the 11th chapter, it reads in the 27th verse, it states, now these are the generations of Terah. Terah begot Abram, Nahor, and Haran. And Haran begot Lot. And Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his nativity, in of the Chaldees, which was part of this land that was ruled before time by Nimrod. And Abram and Nahor took them wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah, and the father of Iscah. But Sarai was barren. She had no child. And Terah took Abram his son, and Lot the son of Haran, his son's son, and Sarai his daughter-in-law, his son Abram's wife, and they went forth with them from of the Chaldees to go into the land of Canaan. And they came to Haran and dwelt there. And the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. Now this is the beginning of Abram, whose name was changed to Abraham. And why is he important? Because we're talking about our story, the Hebrew story. So it must and it has to be of utmost importance that we talk about the one who began the Hebrew story. And let's look in the book of Genesis, the 15th chapter, because this is the premise of this series of teaching of our story. And why? Because this is where you'll find the only record of anyone speaking to anybody about your plight these last 400 years. This was a vision given to the man that Yahweh called a prophet first in the Holy Scriptures. This was a vision given to the man that Yahweh gave a vision to and recorded it as being the first vision ever given to anybody in the Holy Scriptures. This is the recording of a man that Yahweh said is his friend. And I'm going to show you that. These are things that are very important. And he told this man about you. People have been dogging you all your life. People have been dogging black people for years, making fun of us. Some kid I just heard got banned from going to his prom because he said, if I was black, I would be picking cotton. But instead I'm picking you to go to the prom. I mean, this is what these heathen children are doing. They're making mockery of your plight, and they think that's funny. You got people that own NBA teams that talk about black folk. You got people that just dog us for years and years and years. And so you don't even think you're worth anything. You don't think you're beautiful. You don't think you're awesome. You don't think you're stunning. You don't think that you are something to behold. But Yahweh talked about you here in America and in the islands scattered across the four corners of the earth. He talked about you before you were even thought of, as they say, by your parents. You know, your parents said this went on before you was even thought of. When you was just a twinkle in your daddy's eye, you wasn't even a twinkle in your daddy's eye. Your daddy wasn't even a twinkle in your daddy's eye. And Yahweh spoke about you in Genesis 15 and 13, where it reads, and he said unto Abram, and who is Abram? Abram is the one that Yahweh spoke to. Abram is the one that Yahweh has it recorded as being called a Hebrew. And Yahweh spoke unto Abram, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. Yes, Yahweh spoke to Abram. And who is Yahweh? Yahweh is the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Hebrew patriarchs, your fathers. Yahweh spoke unto Abram and said that you will be a stranger in the land that is not yours. And you shall serve them and afflict them 400 years. And afterward, that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and I will bring them out with great substance. And thou shalt go to thy fathers in peace. Thou shalt be buried in a good old age. But in the fourth generation they shall come hither again. For the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. And it came to pass that when the sun went down and it was dark, behold, a smoking furnace and a burning lamp that passed between these pieces. In the same day, Yahweh made a covenant with Abram, saying, unto thy seed have I given this land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates. Do you understand what he just let us know? In our story, we have a land. The seed of Abram has a land. Our story has a land that spans from the river of Egypt. And what is the river of Egypt? The Nile is what they call it today. That's the river of Egypt. There ain't no other river of Egypt. That's like saying the river of the Mississippi. What river they talking about? They ain't talking about the Ohio River. They ain't talking about the Michigan River or whatever, Lake Erie. They talking about the Mississippi River. And this is the river of Misraim, the river of Egypt. And the river of Egypt is where your land begins. And you thinking and scratching your head now thinking, huh, that's part of Africa, isn't it? Yeah, it is. What you've been taught is Africa, even though the so-called Middle East is Africa. So-called Arabian Peninsula is Africa. They just don't want you to think it is. These people done went to the lengths as to go over there and to dig a super big hole between one part of Africa and another to make a canal so they could fill it with water and boats could pass by, and they call it the Suez Canal in the Suez Peninsula. And they say that's where Africa stops, in a man-made hole, so they can act like there's some water there. And it's not. It's a canal that they made. They could close it and fill it back up. And it's nothing but a huge hole, so they could put water in so ships could pass by. They built another canal. It's called Panama Canal, so you could be separated from them people. But nevertheless, the Suez Canal, and it's still Africa. You can walk across the Suez Canal if they close the canal. That's not the river of Egypt. That's the Suez Canal. The river of Egypt is over there in Egypt. Yeah, parts of Africa. As you've been told, you ain't no African. But that's false. You ain't no African. You're a Hebrew. And Africa ain't even Africa. It was called the land of Havilah and Cush. But Yahweh said the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates. Now that's a lot of land. It's a lot of land. It's the Kenites' land, the Kenizzites' land, the Cadmonites' land, the Hittites' land, the Perizzites' land, the Rephaim's land, the Amorites' land, and the Canaanites' land, the Girgashites and the Jebusites, which are all Canaanites. And this is their land that Yahweh gave to us. He spewed them out and gave us this land. Reserved this land for us. And he told Abraham that he gave him this land in a covenant. Who else is going to tell you you got a land? You've been in slavery for 400 years, and then somebody come to you and tell you that you need to separate, and you separate by getting your own piece of land here in America. What nonsense is that? I don't want to how am I separating if I get a piece of land in America that I got to ask America for? America, can I get some land? No. Okay, I guess I'll just be a slave again. No, that's not how that's going to work. Yahweh's going to come get us and bring us to our own land. Now, why would he say this to Abram? Well, go to the book of Isaiah, the 41st chapter. I'm going to show you how important Abraham is. Isaiah 41. Because we're talking about our story. The real story of your people. People going to a DNA match and Ancestry.com just to find out who they are and their ancestors. And that's fine if that's what you want to do. But just know they're not going to tell you you're a Hebrew. They'll tell you that you're from Ireland. They'll tell you you're from Asia. They'll tell you you're from Ghana. They'll tell you you're from Mali and Nigeria, Cameroon and Angola and Ivory Coast. And they'll tell you from Mozambique and Egypt and Ethiopia and South Africa. They'll tell you all these things, but they'll never say, oh, yeah, that's 100% Hebrew right there. No, they're not going to give you. They're not going to put that on a piece of paper. They're not going to make you pay them 6, 7, 8, 900, 10, whatever amount of money you pay them. And then you're going to come back with a piece of paper and say, oh, I'm a Hebrew. A Hebrew what? Oh, and then they say, Hebrew Israelite. No, that's not what it's going to say. It's going to say all these different places. All these different places. And then you're going to be like, okay. But they're not going to teach you your Hebrew. They won't do that. Because Yahweh said, I have scattered you among the countries, and I have made the remembrance of you to cease from among men. And if you want to be returned and learn who you are, you got to go back to the Most High, which means you got to go back to his book, and you got to listen to one of his servants that's going to teach you his book. Because they will not teach you this in the university. They will not teach you this in the high schools and the elementary schools. And they will not teach you this anywhere except from Yahweh's people. And in Isaiah 41 verse 8 it says, but thou, Yisrael, are my servant, Yaakov, whom I have chosen, the seed of Abraham, my friend. You know how awesome you are? You know how great you are? You are the seed, the descendant, the child of, the progeny of, the friend of Yahweh. Who else is able to walk on this earth and say, yeah, my Abba is Yahweh's BFF. My Abba is Yahweh's best friend. My godfather, you know godfathers, right? What better godfather can you have than Yahweh? And that's who Yahweh is. He's your El father, your Elohim father. He was Abraham's best friend. My father grew up, he had a good friend, and he became my sister's godfather. The man that's supposed to look out for the child if something ever happens to his best friend. And Abraham was going to die. Yahweh knew Abraham was going to die, but Yahweh told Abraham, I got your seed. They mine now. Go to the book of Genesis, the 17th chapter, just to show you who you are. Because this is part of your story. This is part of your history, as they say. This is where you come from. When I found out that my family had a bunch of upstanding citizens in their lineage, men that were leaders of people and influential men that taught people positive things and helped people get out of the slave mentality. I got men in my family that just did all these things, wrote newspapers and books and started congregations and all kind of things that seemed positive and good. I didn't have deadbeat dads in my family and drug dealers and locked up men and men that didn't do nothing. When I found that out, I said, man, I got somebody in my family. I come from something. I can't be in these streets running around like a knucklehead like I was. I said, I got to get this together. I got to learn about my people, who I was and who I am and where I come from. And what's better than learning that your ancestor is Yahweh's best friend? Yahweh said to Abraham in Genesis 17:1, and when Abram was 99 years old, Yahweh appeared to Abram and said unto him, I am the Almighty Elohim, El Shaddai. Walk before me and be thou perfect, and I will make my covenant between me and you, and I will multiply thee exceedingly. And Abraham fell on his face, and Elohim talked with him, saying, as for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be a father of many nations. Neither shall thy name any more be called Abram, but thy name shall be Abraham. For a father of many nations have I made thee. And I will make thee exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. And I will establish my covenant between me and thee, and thy seed after thee, in their generations, for an everlasting covenant, to be an Elohim unto thee, and to thy seed after thee. And I will give unto thee, and to thy seed after thee, the land wherein thou art a stranger, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession, and I will be their Elohim. You see this covenant that Yahweh made with Abraham? To let Abraham know, not only am I going to give you a child, I'm going to make you a father of many nations. And the seed that comes out of you, I'm going to give them this land as I give it to you. And I'm going to be their Elohim, their power, their creator, their overseer, their protector, their warrior, their king. I'm going to be that for them, for your seed, Abraham, because you are perfect before me, because you are my friend. You're my servant. And he made sure the seed that came from Abraham was protected in this covenant, which is the very first everlasting covenant out of the 7 that Yahweh made with his people. Yes, Yahweh has made 7 everlasting covenants with the Hebrews that stand forever, that cannot be removed, that he has promised to fulfill. In the first one, he made with Abraham to give us the land of Canaan and to be our Elohim, and we shall be his people. In verse 9, Elohim said to Abraham, thou shalt keep my covenant, therefore, thou and thy seed after thee, in their generations. This is my covenant, which ye shall keep, between me and you, and thy seed after you. Every man child among you shall be circumcised, and you shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of the covenant betwixt me and you. And he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, every man child in your generations. He that is born in the house or brought with your money of the stranger, which is not of thy seed. He that is born in thy house and he that is bought with thy money must needs be circumcised. And my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. So not only is our story part of Abraham receiving this wonderful everlasting covenant, our story is in the flesh. We have to be circumcised to show our holiness unto Yahweh. And they talk against circumcision in the world. They say it's bad and evil and wrong. They say if Yahweh wanted you circumcised, then he would have birthed you like that. They say Yahweh don't make no mistakes and circumcision ain't real. Well, Yahweh didn't make no mistakes. And Yahweh did birth you uncircumcised. And the way Yahweh shows that a people are separated unto him is by their obedience. And the ones that don't obey Yah, and the ones that don't want to do the word of Yah, and the ones that don't want to be in Yahweh's house, and the ones that don't want to be under Yahweh's protection, and the ones that don't want to even be attached to Abraham, and the ones that don't want to be the child of Yah, don't get circumcised. The ones that want to be under Yah's house and serve in Yahweh's kingdom will be and are getting and must be circumcised. You see how our story comes with all kind of goodness, laws and statutes and judgments, commandments and testimonies that we got to follow, and covenants, 7 everlasting covenants. And the first of those covenants is circumcision. It's the first of them covenants. And it connects us to our land that Yahweh said we would inherit, that Yahweh said we would have. And after 400 years, we'll return to this land. And why is that important today? Because it is today, it is now, that these 400 years are upon us. And as I said, we got to understand the time that this is going on. The time that this is happening. Because Yahweh wants you to know what, who, where, when, and how. And we don't know the when. We don't even know how. And we don't know the where. As discussed yesterday, people want to tell you that your land is in South America or North America or Antarctica or Canada or Asia, but it don't want to be where Yahweh said it is. And why? Because they don't believe our report. But it's time to wake up and hear this and understand this and know this is about you. Abraham is your ancestor. And he was given a covenant that connected you to Yahweh. It's your first everlasting covenant. And in this everlasting covenant, Yahweh told you in the first verse of Genesis 17:1. And when Abram was 90 years old and 9. When Abram was 90 years old and 9, Yahweh appeared unto him. Now, why is that important? Because Yahweh lets you know when things occurred. And one of the things about history is that they give you these phenomenal dates and phenomenal times and just broad, vast times, just super huge numbers of times. For instance, they say the earth was created 4.5 billion years ago. My goodness. Billion, 4.5 billion, 4 billion, 500 million years ago, the earth was created. And they know that because they tested a rock. And now the earth is 4.5 billion years old. And do you know, from the year 1905 or whatever, in the early 1900s until now, have you seen the progression of flight? I want you to understand this. In the year 1900, there was no airplanes in America or in Europe. But shortly after that, some Americans copied a design that they found on the Egyptian walls of an airplane. Flew the airplane, it worked, and then the technology of air travel took off. So much so that by 1942, during World War II, dogfighting in the sky between fighter planes had become a major part of battle. Fighting in the sky, flying planes in the sky, fighting, shooting guns and missiles, and people ducking and dodging them with their airplanes. And that was only in the midst of 40 years. Now you got airplanes that have, 2 and 3 levels on them and clubs in the sky and just amazing things. People watching TV in the sky in an airplane. People flying in airplanes all the time. All the time. It's a major mode of travel within 100 years. Just 100 years. And they tell you that man been around for 2 million years. 2 million. And in 100 years, we done learned how to fly planes back and forth every day. Air traffic control and all kind of things. Just 100. And you telling me it took them nearly 2 million years to find out how to fly a plane? This is just erroneous stuff. History dates are crazy. But Yahweh said Abraham was 99 years old. So what year did that happen? And who are we counting after? See, what we got to understand is when we are. Look at the book of Psalms, the 90th chapter. Because if our story is going to hold any kind of validation, if our story is going to meet up to any kind of record of truth, we got to have a full package. We can't just go running around talking about, yeah, there it is. And Yahweh done gave us all kind of evidence to prove our story. In Psalms 90, verse 12, it says, so teach us to number our days, our times. The word days is yom. Yom means time. Our days. Teach us to number our time. What you think our story is about? It's about our days. And Yahweh got a servant here. They tributed this Psalms to Moses. And he says, so teach us to number our days, that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom. We need to know, what time is it? And let me tell you, if you count like your enemy taught you to count, you're not going to be able to understand what it means that Abraham was 99 years old, when that was. You know, oh, he was 99. But if you know what Yahweh said and know where Yahweh started counting from, then you're going to know, oh, okay, that was the time. See, the heathens, your enemies, your oppressors, they tell you it's the year 2019, A.D. In Latin, it means Anno Domini, which means the year of our dominance, or the time of our domination, or our dominion. The Catholic Church like to tell you it means after the death of Christ, which it really doesn't. It means the year of our dominance. But let's go with after the death of Christ. Even our dominance is talking about when the Catholic Church took over. So nevertheless, if they're talking about 2019 AD, after the death of Christ, what are they attributing their counting to when somebody did something? Somebody important to them. And who's important to them? The Christ of the New Testament is their mascot. Well, then they'll tell you it was 430 BC, which means before Christ. And I don't know how Christ can be God and there's something that came before him. Because Yahweh said in Isaiah, the 43rd chapter, the 10th verse, ye are my witnesses, saith Yahweh, and my servants who I have chosen, that you may know, believe, and understand that I am he, that before me there was no Elohim form, neither shall there be after me. So there is no before Christ if he's God, but you know he ain't God. Therefore, you got it before Christ. And BC means before Christ. So the years before Christ, or before the common era, which all has to deal with somebody's ideological interpretation of life. But what do Yahweh base his years off of? Who did Yahweh tell you to look at? Well, first off, Yahweh let us know in the book of Isaiah, the 51st chapter, the first verse. Hearken unto me, ye that follow after righteousness. Ye that seek Yahweh, look unto the rock whence ye were hewn, and to the hole of the pit whence ye are digged. Look unto Abraham thy father, and unto Sarah that bare you. For I called him alone, and blessed him, and increased him. Yahweh wants you to look unto your father Abraham. And when you look into your father, as Yahweh said he would send Elijah to you so that your heart may return unto your father. When you look unto your father, you like to know certain things. Like, when was Abraham born? How old was Abraham? Where did Abraham come from? Who was Abraham's father? Who was Abraham's father's father? Where did Abraham lineage start? Well, let's show you. Abraham, as I showed you earlier in Genesis the 11th chapter, is descendant of Terah. But look here. in Genesis 11, in 27, it says, and these are the generations of Terah. But who was Terah's father? In 25th chapter, verse, it says Nahor. But who was his father? Sereg. And his father, Reu. And his father, Peleg. And his father, Eber. And his father, Selah. And his father, Arphaxad. And his father, Shem. And who's Shem's father? Noah. And who is Noah's father? Lamech. And who was Lamech's father? Methuselah. And who was his father? Enoch. And who was his father? Yered. And who was his father? Canaan. And who was his father? Enos. And who was his father? Seth. And who was Seth's father? Adam. Which lets you know Abraham is a direct descendant of Adam. The very first man to live. And when was Adam? In Genesis, the 5th chapter. You talking about Ancestry.com. They ain't telling you this. They ain't telling you, look, we pricked your blood and we saw that you've been a slave in a land that is not yours nearly 400 years. This was told to Abram. And yes, this nation that has made you serve them and afflicted you, Yahweh is going to judge them and you're going to leave with reparations. They don't prick your blood and tell you that. They don't prick your blood and tell you that you came over here in ships. They don't prick your blood and tell you that you've been oppressed because you turned away from the laws of the Most High. They don't prick your blood and tell you that you got lineage and descendancy in the land of West Africa that came over from East Africa, that came over from Northeast Africa, that you a Levite or a Benjaminite or a Yehudanite. They don't tell you that. They don't tell you that Isaac and Jacob was your father and Abraham is descendant of Shem, and Shem is descendant of Adam. No, they don't tell you that at all. But Yahweh told you that. Yahweh told you that just now. And in the book of Genesis, the 5th chapter, it says, and how much did you pay for that? You didn't have to pay a dime. Maybe your internet bill, or maybe you're using somebody else's Wi-Fi. The point is, you don't pay. Because Yahweh said, come eat without money. And in Genesis 5:1, it says, this is the book of the generations of Adam, the generations of man. In the day that Elohim created man. And the word man in the scriptures is Adam. That's what mankind is named. It ain't human. It ain't Homo sapien. It's Adam. In the day that Elohim created Adam, in the likeness of Elohim made he him. Male and female created he them, and blessed them and called their name Adam. Yes, all mankind, woman and male alike, is called Adam. You are a Adamite. You are Adam. Because that's what Yahweh called you. We're all human, right? No, we're all Adam. And Adam lived 130 years and begot a son in his likeness and after his image, and called his name Seth. In the days of Adam, after he had lived, he begotten Selah, and begot Seth, and were 800 years, and he begot sons and daughters. And all the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he begot sons and daughters, which lets you know what? Adam lived a long time, but Seth lived after Adam 105 years and begot Enos. So Adam was 130 when he had Seth, and 105 years later, Seth begot Enos, which made it the year 235 after Adam. Yes, 235 years after Adam was born, after Adam became alive, after Adam was created. 235 years later, Seth, his son, begot a son named Enos. And after Enos lived for about, and you'll read it in verse 9 of Genesis 5 and 9, and Enos lived 90 years and begot Canaan. So 90 years after the year 235 would have been the year 325 after Adam and Canaan was born. And then it reads in verse 12, and Canaan lived 70 years and begot Mahalaleel. And Mahalaleel was born 70 years after Canaan was born, which means it was the year 395, because that's 70 years later from 325, 395, which means what? This is how Yah marked time after the years of Adam. And by the time you get to your father Abraham, when he was 99 years old and received the very first everlasting covenant, it was the year 2047. And you thought it was 2019. No, it's not 2019. It's just 2019 years later after this fairy tale was made up. Talking about Christ. So 2019 years, you've been talking about a fairy tale for 2019 years. But 2047 years after Adam, a real man named Abraham received the very first everlasting covenant that was given to the Hebrew people. And in the year 2047 would have been the third year of Yahweh's Sabbath of years, which lets you know that Yahweh has an order. And why is the third year important? Because that third represents Yah's servant on earth. Why do you think the third born generation after Adam name was Canaan? Because of that holy land that Yahweh gave us, the land of Canaan. Why do you think Levi is the third born and he is the servant of Yah? So in the year 2047, Abraham received a covenant. The very first everlasting covenant given to the Hebrew people. And now you know when. Now you know when this was. Now when the other people bring their historical data, you can go right to this book of Yahweh and say, yes, you got historical books. We have historical books. You have historical figures. We have historical figures. Let's see if we can find dinosaurs, or let's see if we can find Abraham. Even though all of your books talk about Abraham, all of your books mention Abraham, but when it comes to Abraham being black, when it comes to Abraham being the father of Mike Brown and Trayvon Martin and Emmett Till and Malcolm X, When it comes to Abraham being the father of Medgar Evers and Huey P. Newton, when it comes to Abraham of being the father of Bobby Seale or Martin Luther King, now Abraham don't exist. Abraham ain't the father of Rosa Parks. Abraham ain't the father of Harriet Tubman. Abraham ain't the father of Frederick Douglass. Abraham ain't the father of Kunta Kinte. Abraham is some made-up figure that you done painted white in your books now. And it ain't our story anymore. But Yahweh has proved you wrong. And now we see that we are Abraham's children. Where else do you read about anybody going into captivity for 400 years? Well, nowhere. Where else do you read of somebody going into a land that is not theirs, where they shall be forced to serve them and be afflicted by them for 400 years? You don't read that anywhere but Yahweh's book. And in Yahweh's book, not only did he tell us that Abraham received this covenant, the very first everlasting covenant made for the Hebrew people, he told you what year it happened. In the colleges and universities, they call that empirical data, which means real evidence, things that you can trace, something that you can touch. And somebody just sent me a news story, a Fox News story that was giving a, let me pull it up, just to show you these things are not a lie. It was a Fox News story. And the headline of it says, "Rare ancient treasures bearing biblical names discovered in Jerusalem, city of David." And in this story, it lets you know that a biblical name, let me get it here. I thought this was beautiful. It lets you know that a biblical name, meaning a name that you can find in the scriptures, of Nathan Melech was found. His seal, his signet. Because back then we had rings with our names in it, and it's how we signed and approved documents. Now this biblical name, Nathan Melech, they discovered his seal. And let me see if it tells me the scripture where you can find this Nathan Melech. It says the words on his signet said, "Belonging to Nathan Melech, servant of the king." Let's see. The book of Kings, the second book of Kings, 23 and 11. Let's go there just to show you what they doing. Now in the second book of Kings, 23, let's see who Nathan Melech was. And Nathan means gift. Melech means king. And in 2 Kings 23 and 11, it reads, "And he took away the horses that the kings of Yehudah had given to the sun at the entering of the house of Yahweh by the chamber of Nathan Melech, the chamberlain, which was in the suburbs, and burned the chariots of the sun with fire." Who are they talking about? Josiah, King Josiah. And he did this thing because there was idols in Yah's house. And therefore, he wanted to get rid of these things. But as you see, the scriptures is telling you a description of where he took these things from and whose chamber they were near. Nathan-Melech, who was a chamberlain. He was a servant of the king, a Hebrew. Now, how in the world are they going to tell you that your story ain't real, but here's some archaeologists in Israel, they done discovered a signet ring. And it was written, if you see the picture, it was a little signet mold written in ancient Hebrew, or what you call Paleo Hebrew. Paleo is a Greek word for ancient. Ancient Hebrew. Which lets you know what? The modern Hebrew script that you see today, it ain't what we wrote. We wrote in ancient Hebrew. And nevertheless, it said Nathan-Melech, a name right out of the book. I thought this wasn't real. Well, if that is real, if Nathan-Melech is real, if he was really the chamberlain of Josiah, King Josiah is a son of David. And David is a son of Boaz. And Boaz is a son of Pharez. And Pharez is a son of Yehuda. And Yehuda is a son of Jacob. And Jacob is the son of Isaac. And Isaac is the son of Abraham. And who is Abraham? Yahweh's best friend. And you know he's Yahweh's best friend because where are you going to read in the scriptures anybody else is Yahweh's friend? Where? Show it to me. Go ahead. You can't. Why? Because he's the only person ever mentioned of being Yahweh's friend. Brothers and sisters, our story is the greatest story ever told. Our story is the truth. Do you know what the heathens are going to do when what I'm teaching you today becomes the prevailing, prominent, and dominant knowledge? I'll show you. In the book of Jeremiah, I believe it's the 16th chapter. Just seeing this great word of Yah gets me all joyful, makes me want to dance and shout, makes me want to just run up and down the street proclaiming the name of Yah. And I will. And here it is in Jeremiah 16, verse 19. O Yahweh, my strength and my fortress and my refuge in the day of affliction. And what day, what time is this right now? This is the day of affliction. This is the time of affliction. Jeremiah is saying, oh, Yahweh, my strength. And that's who Yahweh should be to us, because that's what Yahweh promised to his friend, that he would be our Elohim. We've been taken care of from way back, way back. Yahweh done had our back before we even had a back. Yahweh is the best friend a man can have. Bump a dog. What's a dog? Yahweh is my friend. That's my father's friend. So I need to make him my friend. Yahweh in the proverb says, do not forsake your father's friend. It says in Jeremiah 16 and 19, oh, Yahweh, my strength and my fortress and my refuge in the day of affliction. The Gentiles shall come unto thee from the ends of the earth and shall say, surely our fathers have inherited lies, vanity, and things wherein there is no profit. There ain't no profit in dinosaurs. There ain't no profit in homonyms. There ain't no profit in Neanderthals. There ain't no profit in Homo erectus. There ain't no profit in all these false historical doctrines that they've been teaching you. In Lucy, the first ape woman. Get out of here with all that stuff. Yahweh is the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov. And they're going to say Yahweh is the only one. We've been taught lies. We've been taught that the Cro-Magnon man began in Europe. What is a Cro-Magnon man? What in the world are they telling y'all in these places? And you done forsook Yahweh, the creator. No, they done been taught lies and things where there is no prophet. Shall a man make Elohim unto himself that are not Elohim? What is that saying? Shall a man make a powerful one, make his power unto himself that is not a power at all? Therefore, behold, I will this once cause them to know. Yeah, Yahweh said, I'm going to let them know this one time, and they ain't going to forget it. I will cause them to know. I will cause them to know my hand and my might, and they shall know that my name is Yahweh. Because that's who spoke to Abraham. That's who told Abraham that your seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and they shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. And brothers and sisters, our story has been covered up by all kind of foolishness and all kind of lies. But as I said, our story is the greatest story ever told. And Abraham is one of the greatest men that walked this earth. And he was Yahweh's friend. And you are his descendant, which makes you Yahweh's seed, Yahweh's people. And if you're Yahweh's people, then you are not only the main subject of the greatest people on earth, you are the main character of the story of the greatest story ever told. And mighty Yahweh has wonders for you out of your history, your story, the words written about you, so you can wake up, so you can be restored, so you can know that there is an Elohim in YIsraEL, and his name is Yahweh. Hallelujah. And until tomorrow, Yahweh loves you very much, and so do we at the house of Israel.
Soul. Bless Yahweh, oh my soul. Bless Yahweh, oh my soul. Singing praises to your holy name. Bless Yahweh, oh my soul. Bless Yahweh, oh my soul. Bless Yahweh, oh my soul. Singing praises to your holy name. Bless Yahweh, oh my soul. Praise Yah. Bless Yahweh, oh my soul. Bless Yahweh, oh my soul, singing praises to your holy name. Bless Yah, all you witnesses, do not forget his benefits. Forgives iniquities, heal the diseases in my ligaments. The Redeemer and Creator, me from dust, he know I make up merciful and slow to anger. Gracious, only one can save us. Yah, who satisfies my mouth with good things. Bless Yah, who renews me like the eagle's wings. Bless Yah, who made his ways known unto Moses and his acts to the children of Israel, who we chosen. Bless Yah. Bless Yah, oh my soul. Bless Yah, all his angels. Bless Yah, all his hosts. Bless Yah, all his words. Bless Yahweh, oh my soul. Bless Yahweh, oh my soul. Bless Yahweh, oh my soul. Singing praises to your holy name. Bless Yahweh, oh my soul. Bless Yahweh, oh my soul. Bless Yahweh, oh my soul, singing praises to your holy name. I will bless bless Yah at all times. His praise shall continually be in my rhymes. Praise Yah, for unto us his glorious shine. Baruch Yah Malek, Ba Shema'im Elo Ba'aretz. Praise Yah, for he execute righteousness and judgment for all that are oppressed. He renewed my health like the eagle's wings. Yah fed my mouth with good things, so unto Yah his glory I sing. Yah bless.
Bless Yah, all my soul, bless Yah, all his angels, bless Yah, all his hosts, bless Yah, all his works.
Bless Yahweh, oh my soul. Bless Yahweh, oh my soul. Bless Yahweh, oh my soul. Singing praises to your holy name. Bless Yahweh, oh my soul. Bless Yahweh, oh my soul. Bless Yahweh, oh my soul. Singing praises to your holy name.